And it did stop raining outside, right? That song was supposed to have double meaning. We actually did select. So we thought, last panel and folks with roller suitcases ready to head out after hearing Brian's great 5 things we learned. But we'll put some good meat on a last panel here and talk about, again, a topic you heard great stuff from Stephen just earlier with Fast Company and Inc. And joined here by Zach and Kyle. Zach from Fox Digital and Kyle from Deutsch. So we've got top seller, top buyer, and we thought we would, maybe, just arm wrestle or clash it out right here, and everybody can witness. We've got kind of an MMA thing happening. We could turn this into an octagon maybe, but so we wanted to get into the trenches and hear what's going on at your own organization. Maybe comment on a couple great things that Stephen had already set up in his primer. But we always start buyer first. So Kyle, give us a sense of a little bit of background about not just your role here, but you've been around the block a little while. We've each got a couple of gray hairs. So say that as a seasoned veteran who has been in media for a while. Tell us your perspective on this whole viewability phenomenon in the last 12 months or so.
Sure. First, I'd like to register an official complaint for the format, which is standing. Make the short guy. I need chairs.
Where do you want to be?
Level the playing.
We get him we get him an Apple box. Maybe?
This is like my high school nightmare brought back. When you're 5'4". The thing on viewability that is comical, and I'll have to admit to having cut my teeth in media starting in the early 90s when none of this existed. So I kind of frame everything in old school stuff, which is kind of have to laugh when you hear about the sort of 50% viewable, depending on who you listen to from ComScore or Nielsen or Moats or whatever. But I don't know if we've moved that much further along from that old department store guy that said 50% of my ad budget's wasted. I just don't know which one. It's weird that we're still talking about kind of half going into the unknown. We're getting better for sure, but I'm not always sure we are.
But the fact that digital's always had this conundrum, a lot of other old timers who remember the click-through debate in the late 90s, and still a lot of people who have an over-fixation on the click. It seems like, hey, just because we can measure it now, holy cow, there's all this great new technology that we should now focus on that as a key metric. But again, compared to other media, are we going a little too far on just because we can measure it? Maybe we're all running towards something and making something a little higher a priority than maybe what true marketers and your clients' goals are.
Yes and no. I think this is a good topic to put a white hot lens onto, because it is ultimately about whether or not somebody can even see it. Whether or not they choose to is another story.
Opportunity to view is the key definition, right? That everybody.
But there's always been a little bit of a double standard. I've sat in 4-hour-long meetings where clients and ourselves have parsed $35,000 digital buys, and you can present a $100 million upfront in 20 minutes. Because the sense of measurement. Now you can apply the same sense of measurement to the linear TV as well, but people just don't think of it that way. So yeah, there's definitely a double standard. I think it should be equalized on both fronts.
Zach, take us a little bit inside Fox Digital and in the trenches of what's going on. How are you and your sales colleagues handling the requests, some humble, some aggressive, and across the ecosystem and empowering your teams and the personal, you can name names, obviously, it's the last session. I think we should be doing a little more of that anyway. So give us again some of the good examples and some of the holy cow, it's ugly in there in some circumstances, please.
Yeah, at Fox News and Fox Business Digital, we've really tried to take a leadership position with regards to viewability as a whole. We have highly viewable inventory to begin with, and we feel, and I think anyone who has highly viewable inventory across the board should play to their strength and use that to your benefit. So we've been trying to educate our sellers on how we want to use viewability more as currency and less of a metric for success. I think it's really important from the sales side that you try to position yourself in that manner.
Do buyers get that? Or are people fixated on that being a KPI and now this is the shiny object and that's the first line in the RFP and the rest is, oh, by the way, we want to do brand awareness maybe?
Right, so that's one of the big sticking points is when we receive an RFP that says, viewability is the first thing on the docket. However, we still want this other KPI and this other KPI and this sponsorship and this takeover. So we have to have a negotiation about which one matters most.
Sorry for that.
Yes.
Kyle representing all
Sorry.
buyers. Way to go, Kyle.
But I think you have to prioritize and you have to have conversations. Ultimately, it's the relationship that will get you through the negotiation process. But the stance we're taking is that we think the MRC and the IAB did a really good job with what they define, and that is a baseline and a place to start. And if you think that should be, if you think it's too small, then we'll work with you on what you think it should be and give you a guarantee along those lines. But we see it as a starting place. And again, I still think that we do have conversations a lot about keeping in mind the whole idea around viewability being the opportunity to see the ad. And really, that's it. It doesn't really give you any indication the ad will perform, the ad will actually be seen, or looked at rather, clicked on, engaged with, or anything. And we don't want that to become what people are glaring at when viewability is talked about. We want to keep the focus on what it really is.
So full disclosure, the IAB is a client of Prasca Consulting's, and they've asked us to help out with a little bit of a viewability roadshow. So stay tuned for some announcements there with a little bit of individual deep dive sessions. At Fox, one of the things, and you heard from Stephen talking about the vendor challenge. And so take us through the stack, if you will, of where Fox is today. You've got one partner, you've got multiple partners, you're open to all 14 on the buy side. What's the overlap and percentage of, oh, we've got a match and we don't have to have the you're at 35, we're at 82 fun chat.
Right.
How often is that happening versus not these days?
It's complicated. There's 15 or some odd accredited vendors for display, and I think over 50 claim they can measure. So we prefer Moat as our preferred vendor for Fox News and Fox Business. I think they do a great job. They measure over 95% of all of our impressions, and so that gives us what we feel is a fair read on the measurability of any ad campaign. Where it gets tricky, as you're alluding to, is other people out there have come to us and said we don't want to use Moat, we want to use our vendor. So the way we try to handle all this is we try to say Moat is who we want to use. You can use who you'd like, and if there's a discrepancy within the viewability realm of over 10%, we want you to go off of what we're showing because we think we may have had a higher measurability rate of the campaign. We provide weekly reporting on measurability to all of our buyers for free, of course, no charge, and we ask for the same thing back so that we can sort of monitor as we go down the road of any campaign so we can kind of figure out when things are starting to get into that area.
You getting that back?
Yeah, we are. I mean,
Good.
it's again, I think there's a lot of education. I think these standards need to continue to evolve, and I don't know. I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy, and there's a lot of extra work. We've taken the stance that we're staffing up an entire team around helping our sellers understand how to build plans out in sponsorships or whatever it may be to keep the buyers happy at the same time. So we're really investing in this.
It's interesting, if I can just jump in,
Please.
you said it's a lot of work. In talking to people before coming here, it was interesting how some of the planners fed back, like, oh, that's a lot of work in terms of really babysitting stuff, which is their job. And, as the robots are supposed to take over, the fact that creates other problems is good for all of our job security. But that idea of it's a lot of work was really interesting, that the diligence and sometimes the confusion because the two, you can use two different vendors and get a pretty different number. That I think that causes planners some consternation. Not because it's hard, but because there's not a clear solve. Yeah. But it's nice to hear you say you feel like it's a lot of work too. It's not just the buy side that's having to struggle with it. You guys are too. So.
Yeah, and just to add on there, I mean, it comes back to what we were talking about with RFPs. I mean, they're already extremely tedious. No offense. They're already tedious. They're all different.
Point taken.
They're all asking for the biggest and best thing you've never done before.
And tickets too. Don't forget tickets.
And then on
20
top
grand.
of that, you factor in, and you're factoring in some new layer of measurable, metric or whatever you want to call it. So it's a whole other load of work.
But Kyle, is the pressure coming from your clients though? I mean, is it the brand themselves that have said, wait a minute, now that we can measure this, holy cow, does that mean you guys have been buying packages of garbage in this 46 to 62% that I'm hearing random articles? Wow, have you guys been doing this all along? And wait, no, get rid of that. And so you're having to understandably react to that and then kind of line up, all right, we got our vendors in place and we got to go to market. Or is it, how much of that is coming from your own team? Because as you indicated, there's a lot of work, and how much extra juice are you getting out of the squeeze of doing all that, right?
Yeah. This is one where I'm really happy to say that the team's own innate sense of paranoia and client service really put them ahead of the client in terms of, or clients, in terms of wanting to solve it. that we've been talking about this for a long time. Not that everybody hasn't, but really trying to get ahead of it and establish some benchmarks, some criteria. Just let people know we're working on it. Let clients know we're working on it. So we've instilled a deep, like I said, deep sense of paranoia in the teams, for better or for worse, and they stay ahead of it. And that's a testament to the digital media director too, who really is on top of it. So I'm surprised on some levels that clients haven't been with torches, chasing the Frankenstein monster through the village of viewability. But it doesn't feel like it. That might be our clients too, who are great and even tempered, to say the least.
Wow.
We love our clients, just for the record.
Fortunate.
Retweet that, please.
Duly noted. Multi-channel question for each of you guys. So as you're buying across desktop, mobile, video, let's not even get into linear TV or digital out of home, and we could have those discussions later. But how are you finding it, Kyle, on the buy side with your guys? Are there some takeaways on a campaign by campaign, or where because viewability is maybe more of a priority, are things shifting across channel to where, well, clearly mobile in some ways, well, we can score higher there, so let's shift a little bit more for these clients because their objectives line up, needing to have a currency of viewability more important?
No, viewability, if I'm understanding the question, viewability isn't driving a cross-channel discussion for us right now as broadly. I think we're trying to figure it out just within a digital ecosystem, and just even comparing mobile, which the viewability on some levels looks horrible, to desktop, just reconciling all that before there's a decision to steal from a linear TV budget into a...
What I should have asked better was, are there budget decisions where you're saying, well, because this type of mobile is in the tank and, video over here is a lot better, for certain campaign objectives, we're shifting budget intentionally to focus in certain channels?
Yes, but slowly, because of the discrepancy in some of the data, where you can look at different data sources. And if you reacted to the one you got yesterday, you would have swung the pendulum really far, and then another one came in this morning that said, you know what, it's okay. And we really have to kind of reconcile all this stuff to make decisions that aren't knee-jerk.
Yeah, everybody come back off the ledge. Yeah. Zach, what are you seeing from buyers and asking? Are you guys making decisions around, let's ask the redesign question. So are you guys making decisions around the UI to then tweak scores and realize that, okay, we can take rate up appropriately and remove that waste and have a better user experience? Are you starting to de-NASCAR a lot of the properties? And it's all relative. You guys certainly are not extreme.
I think there's been several properties out there I think did a great job with redesign, with viewability, being the focus on that. We're doing the same thing on not as extreme a level as some have taken, but user experience ultimately is the most important thing for us. And I think what's surprising, some people necessarily don't understand, is that just because a unit is below the fold doesn't mean that it's never going to be seen. We have a lot of engaged readers on Fox News, for example. There's a unit down there for a reason, and those units actually get fairly high viewable rates, a lot within articles. There are places on the website where they don't, but a lot of the article pages receive a really high viewability rate. So so the redesign, it's not exactly a site-wide thing that we're doing. We're really taking it piece by piece and keeping the user experience in mind. I think you have to right now. I think it's something, if you're not considering, you should. It's really important.
So since you're in an organization that actively participates in these things called upfronts and these things called new fronts, there have been some public and private whispering around, oh wow, well linear TV maybe could take advantage of, this could be something they could really move on digital, because holy cow, that thing's viewable. I mean, TV, we're putting a 30-second spot in front of you on a big screen, and you're forced to, forgetting about DVRs or anything else, but you're forced to be engaged on that. Is that coming up at all within the Fox empire in terms of positioning? Because you don't want to, shoot one foot, or, you know what I mean? But are they leveraging across channels, if you will, across Fox, what it means to lean in on viewability in some areas and lean out and not talk about it?
On our side of the company, keeping in mind it's Fox News Channel and Fox Business Network, we're just, I think this year will be the year in the upfront where we start to have more of those viewability conversations, whether it's a buy that they want to try to execute across video/linear TV with a viewability guarantee in mind. I'm not really sure how it's going to go yet. because news traditionally will go later and down the road of the upfront. But on the other side of our company, I know I was just at the Fox Upfront earlier this week, and they poked fun. They had Rob Lowe talking about viewability. It was hysterical.
Yeah.
But I know everybody's talking about it. I just think it's still yet to play itself out this year.
True. Question about let's play the percentages here. Kyle, is there a Deutsch official? This is thank you IAB and MRC. We're going to take that and run with it, or we're going to take that and add to it, or we're going to append. Is there for all campaigns? This is our goal. Does it go individually? How are you?
Sure.
What's that line in the RFP looking like?
There's 400 lines in the RFP.
Just 400.
Good. The easiest / vaguest answer is we're pivoting around the MRC standard, but in terms of our policy out for buying, we're still exploring. We've tried deals at all different levels, and the reality is that careful what you ask for, because on 100% viewable deals, the cost structure and essentially cherry picking may not work out. Actually, I'm emphasizing that word may actually be worse than taking your chances on a lower standard and working your way back to what that viewable inventory was at an effective CPM. We've got to see where that really works. We may all end up cutting off our nose to spite our face a little bit. I have to be very careful in saying that. But so
nobody's recording this. That's fine. Don't worry. It's just live stream.
We want to be very deliberate in what those standards are. And I don't know that you get to a point where it's just one. There will be efficiency clients for whom that's okay.
That's right.
And there's going to be premium clients who only want the kind of stuff you're selling, and the standard's going to be super, super high. So to pick one, I think, might be an overstatement.
Good point. Zach, last quick question before we check for a couple in the audience. What are the percentages looking like in terms of the distribution and coming to you? Or is it more than just one agency group asking for 100% viewability, hard stop, not negotiable? And then second part to that question, what are the logistical nightmares of doing that in a programmatic world when there are no free impressions?
Right.
And you have to do rebates and checks cut back off the exchange. Are we really doing that?
Part one is that there's been one holding company who's been quite vocal about 100% being that or nothing. As I mentioned earlier, we're willing to work with anyone getting to that point. It's all, in my opinion, it's a negotiation in terms of what that looks like and what that rate structure looks like. I think you're cutting down a lot of the supply by asking for that 100% guarantee. So we're willing to work with anyone on any guarantee with the understanding that the kind of plan you might have to purchase with that guarantee is going to look a lot different at a 70% or at any other percentage of a guarantee for that matter.
Are you getting CPM premium on average? So if it was 70%, that 30% delta is going up in CPM, and everybody understands that?
Our rates, so for a 70% plan, our rates essentially are unchanged. For a 100% plan, there is going to be a little upswing, and that comes back to what I was talking about earlier, which is that I really look at this as a currency and less of a metric. I mean, if you want to pay for, or if you're asking for the creme de la creme, I think in some ways, as a seller, you're going to say you have to pay for it. I don't think that's an unreasonable ask.
No, it's what we've all been doing forever, whether it's cherry picking linear TV inventory, front of the book ad pages, or the best billboard on the freeway. I mean, it is a reasonable request.
And then second part of your question is with programmatic. Most of the requests we're getting tend to be less about a guarantee and more about using it as an optimization tool, post-campaign analysis. And so we're trying to have more conversations about that. We've yet to make a programmatic guarantee. I think probably more private marketplace deals, more automated guaranteed is where that's going to head. But we at Fox News, Fox Business, we aren't really there yet.
Yeah.
We've kind of taken the stance that if you want to do some great viewable guarantee, we'll work with you directly and less programmatically on that front.
A little easier, actually, probably right now. Yeah. Makes sense. Questions from the audience? Got about 90 seconds, give or take.
Everybody's thinking, is my flight late?
Very understood, yeah. Texting
do you
and
know
things were
what
delayed.
time the flight
Someone
to JFK
pointing.
is?
There's one over there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Marty Berman with Triad Retail Media. One of the challenges that we face working with retail pubs is the fact that from a viewability standpoint, I think it matters what genre or what publishing format you come from. And I think that from a viewability standpoint, not all publishers should be necessarily painted with the same stroke when it comes to viewability based on the type of users that they have. I'm just curious Kyle, from a from your standpoint, how do you segregate publishers when it's based on their model?
Sure. Yeah. There does seem to be a pretty clear delineation between types of publishers, or more importantly, types of content in terms of the interest categories and stuff like that. And Google did something on that where they showed the degradation in viewability. The delta's not huge though. Certainly, if I'm thinking of the Google stuff, where it was a matter of, I don't even think there was a 5-point swing from 52 to maybe 47, 48. Now, these things matter, and we're all trying to make every tenth of a point count. So beyond knowing that there's a difference, I couldn't address your question directly in terms of how the teams are doing it. I wish someone smarter than I was standing here with me from the agency to do that, but we're aware of it and I know the teams are accounting for it.
Anything else?
Right over here.
Hi there, thank you. Similar question that I asked earlier, but from a programmatic side, how are you reconciling viewability to impressions when the impressions may have different value ascribed to them because they came out of an auction? So are you just taking viewability at like 70% and that's just what we cut? Or are you actually going impression by impression and seeing what the value is for those and then paying on the viewable ones for those?
I'll let you. You really look like you have an answer.
No,
for this.
I was really hoping that was for you, actually.
The answer I'm going to stammer my way through is we're looking at it a lot of different ways. I think what you're getting at, though, in terms of the viewability versus impressions, brand lift studies for us and parsing what we're buying through the brand lift study and getting increasingly narrow in how we're looking at the effectiveness of those impressions might be the thing that kind of cuts through some of this. That's all I'm going to say, because after that I'm going to make something up.
That's good.
It's about that time to do that.
Yeah.
Zach, any other perspective from what you're saying? Good?
Yep.
No, make something up. Come on.
No.
One thing we've noted is, I mean, when folks are coming at you with 100% requests, you're still not able to turn off the non-viewable to where buyers can't drop a cookie still in there and be able to retarget for free, right?
Right.
Okay. Just had to double check that. Well, one neat thing, again, maybe symbolic of being the last content, it's nice with such a hot topic and a lot of misunderstanding, a little confusion, a little bit of clash, and folks wanting to take advantage of a situation that we've got the privilege of having a couple of strong sellers and buyers up here to help everybody understand. And the neat part is everyone, when we realize that we're all in the same circle together and just do what's good business for the client eventually, everybody wins, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, good takeaway. So please join me in thanking Kyle and Zach.
Thank you.